Hello everyone, and welcome to Who Created It and How. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most incredible engineering marvels of the ancient world, the aqueduct. When you hear the word aqueduct, what comes to mind? For most people, it's the towering, arched stone structures snaking across the Roman countryside. And you're not wrong. The Romans were absolute masters of aqueduct construction, and their work has stood the test of time for thousands of years. But were they the first to come up with this brilliant idea of moving water over long distances? The answer might surprise you. Let's travel back in time, long before the rise of Rome. Our story begins in the ancient Near East, in places like Mesopotamia and Persia. As early as the 7th century BC, the Assyrians were already building sophisticated water systems. King Sennacherib, for example, constructed a massive 50-kilometer-long aqueduct to bring water to his capital city, Nineveh. Unlike the famous Roman arches, these early aqueducts were often simple, open channels, or even tunnels dug diretos through hills. They were a testament to the ingenuity of these early civilizations, who understood that a reliable water supply was the lifeblood of their cities. Then we have the ancient Greeks. They were also skilled water engineers. In the 6th century BC, on the island of Samos, they built the tunnel of Eupalinos. This wasn't an aqueduct in the traditional sense, but a 1-kilometer-long tunnel dug through a mountain to supply water to the city. It's considered one of the greatest engineering feats of the ancient world. The Greeks, like the Assyrians before them, primarily used tunnels and covered channels, which were effective but lacked the grandeur we associate with aqueducts today. Now let's fast forward to the Romans. This is where the story ingredient of aqueducts truly takes off. The Romans didn't invent the aqueduct, but they perfected it and scaled it up to an unprecedented level. Their first aqueduct, the Aqua Appia, was built in 312 BC. It was mostly underground, following the earlier Greek and Assyrian models. But as the Roman Empire grew, so did its thirst for water. The population of Rome swelled, and the city needed more water for its public baths, fountains, and private homes. This demand drove Roman engineers to innovate. They began building the magnificent arched structures that we are so familiar with. Why the arches? Well, it was a brilliant solution to a complex problem. Building a channel on the ground mustawa meant it had to follow the contours of the land, which could be very inefficient. Tunneling was difficult and slow. The arches allowed the Romans to maintain a consistent, gentle, downward slope for the water to flow, regardless of the valleys and hills in its path. It was a perfect marriage of form and function. The Romans used a special ingredient that made their structures incredibly durable: pozzolanic concrete. This hydraulic setting cement, made from volcanic ash, could harden underwater and was incredibly strong. This is a big reason why so many Roman aqueducts, like the Pont du Gard in France or the Aqueduct of Segovia in Spain, are still standing today. These weren't just functional structures, they were symbols of Roman power and engineering prowess, monuments that declared the might of the empire to all who saw them. The construction process was a monumental task. It involved thousands of workers, from skilled engineers and surveyors to laborers and slaves. The surveyors used simple but effective tools like the chorobates, a long level, and the groma, a surveying tool for laying out right angles to ensure the gradient was perfect. A slope that was too steep would cause the water to flow too fast and erode the channel, while a slope that was too gentle would lead to stagnation. The Romans Beaujun aimed for a very slight gradient, sometimes as little as a few centimeters for every 100 meters. It was precision engineering on a massive scale. Over a period of 500 years, the Romans built 11 major aqueducts for the city of Rome alone, totaling over 400 kilometers in length. But only about 50 kilometers of that was above ground on those Formosus arches. The rest was underground in tunnels and trenches. These aqueducts supplied Rome with over 1 million cubic meters of water every day. That's enough to fill 400 Olympic-sized swimming pools. This abundance of water transformed Roman society, enabling the famous public baths, ornate fountains, and even private running water for the wealthy. It was a level of public hygiene and convenience criteria would not be seen again in Europe for over 1,000 years after the fall of the empire. So what happened after the Roman Empire collapsed? With the fall of Rome, the expertise to build and maintain these complex systems was largely lost. Many aqueducts fell into disrepair, were scavenged for their materials, or were simply abandoned. For centuries, aqueduct building on such a grand scale ceased. Cities reverted to more basic water sources like wells and rivers. But the idea never completely died. The knowledge was preserved in texts, and Ephaetos, in the very ruins Fatores, stood as a silent testament to Roman genius. During the Renaissance, there was a renewed interest in classical knowledge, and engineers began to study Roman techniques once again. Later, during the Industrial Revolution, the need for large-scale water supply systems for accessorial cities led to a revival of aqueduct construction, though now using modern materials like iron and steel. Today, we still build aqueducts, then they look very different. The California Aqueduct, for example, is a massive system of canals, tunnels, and pipelines that stretches for over 700 kilometers, bringing water from Northern California to the arid south. We use advanced technology, GPS, and powerful machinery, but the fundamental principle remains the same as it was for King Sennacherib thousands of years ago, moving water from where it is plentiful to where it is needed. So, to answer our original question, who built the aqueducts? The answer isn't a single civilization. It was a gradual evolution produced of human ingenuity. The Assyrians laid the groundwork, the Greeks refined the techniques, but it was the Romans who took the concept and elevated it to an art form, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire and awe us to this day. They didn't invent it, but they certainly perfected it. Their work reminds us that with vision, determination, and brilliant engineering, humanity can overcome incredible challenges and reshape the world around us. The story of the aqueduct is a story of progress, of building upon the knowledge of those who came before to create something immense. Thank you so much for joining us on Who Created It and How. I hope you enjoyed this journey through the history of aqueducts. If you found this interesting, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the origins of the world's greatest creations. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next episode. See you next time.